Picture this. You are navigating an ocean of sand under a sky that is just, completely choked with stars.
Right, so it is pre-Islamic Arabia, and it is deep in the night.
Exactly. The daytime heat out there is absolutely lethal, so your caravan really has no choice but to travel in the pitch black.
Yeah, which is terrifying on its own.
It really is. And the silence out there, it's so heavy, it almost rings in your ears.
Just that total isolating quiet.
Right. And then from somewhere out in the dunes, you hear it.
The worst possible sound.
Yeah. The faint, unmistakable sound of a child crying. Or maybe it's a woman calling out for help. And every human instinct you possess just screams at you to step off the safe path and go help them.
Which is exactly what the creature waiting in the dark is counting on.
Yeah, it's a trap.
Because if you take that step, you aren't walking toward a rescue, you are walking into a nightmare.
Welcome to a new deep dive.
Huh.
Today, we're mounting a rescue mission of our own, but it's a conceptual one.
A rescue mission for a monster.
Exactly. We are taking one of the most terrifying, psychologically complex creatures in all of human mythology and saving it from its modern, watered-down reputation. We are talking about the Ghoul.
Right, the Ghoul.
Because if you've played a fantasy video game or watched a horror movie lately, you've probably seen one. And it's usually depicted as this, mindless, stumbling zombie you just hack away at for easy experience points.
It is a tragic demotion, really. I mean, modern pop culture has completely sanitized the creature.
Totally.
The original lore paints a picture of a predator so highly specialized, so uniquely attuned to human psychology, that it makes your standard Hollywood monster look like a blunt instrument.
And to rebuild this psychological profile, we are pulling from two really incredible sources today.
Yeah, two very different types of sources.
Right. So first, I've been digging through translated excerpts of a really comprehensive text called The Ghoul, Shadow of the Arabian Desert.
Such a great title.
It really sets the tone. And alongside that text, we are examining this massive, meticulously detailed visual chart.
The taxonomy chart.
Yeah, taxonomy classifying Arabian mythological creatures. And between the historical text and this visual field guide, this picture emerges of an entity that didn't just threaten your physical safety, but, assaulted your very mind.
It is pure psychological horror.
It really is. But to grasp the sheer terror of this thing, we kind of have to rewind the clock. Where does a nightmare like this even begin?
Well, it begins in the oral traditions of the desert nomads, long before any of these stories were actually codified into written texts like 1001 Nights.
Right, before it was all written down.
Exactly. To understand the Ghoul, you first have to understand the broader mythological ecosystem it comes from. You have to understand the realm of the Jinn.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the text describes the Jinn as beings made of smokeless fire.
Yeah, that's the classic definition.
And they occupy a parallel reality to humans.
Yeah.
But they aren't inherently evil either. Looking at this taxonomy chart, the Jinn are incredibly diverse.
Oh, completely.
They have distinct societies. They have rules, kings, religions. They are rational, thinking beings navigating their own complex world just like we are.
They are. But the Ghoul represents a horrific schism in that system.
Like a broken branch.
Exactly. The Shadow of the Arabian Desert text argues that the Ghoul is intrinsically linked to the Jinn, but it's a mutated rogue offshoot.
Wow.
It is a creature that deliberately turned its back on the rationality of its own kind. It shows a path of absolute, unadulterated malice.
So it's essentially the mythological equivalent of a serial killer.
That is a perfect way to put it, yeah.
If the Jinn have a civilization, the Ghoul is the outcast who severed all social contracts. It basically devolved itself on purpose, abandoning any sense of society to become this solitary, hyper-focused predator.
That deliberate devolution is really the key to its identity. It operates completely outside the laws of humans and Jinn alike. And what's fascinating here is that the etymology of its name completely defines the creature.
Oh, the word gala, right.
Oh, exactly. The Arabic root of the word ghoul is the verb gala, which means to destroy, but more specifically, it means to seize by surprise.
To seize by surprise. That feels like a massive clue to its behavior.
It tells you everything you need to know. It doesn't rely on brute, overwhelming force. Its entire existence is built on the architecture of surprise and deception.
Right. It implies this isn't a creature that chases you down across the dunes like a hungry wolf. It's an ambush predator.
Precisely. Its entire evolutionary strategy relies on waiting. It doesn't kick down the door of a caravan. It operates in the margins, using extreme patience. It makes you come to it.
Which naturally brings us to the actual mechanics of the hunt. Because, if your whole survival depends on seizing prey by surprise in a completely barren desert, you need to be incredibly persuasive.
You have to be a master manipulator.
Exactly. The text details its primary weapon, and it's not claws or venom, it's shapeshifting.
Yeah, the illusions.
But the forms it chooses to take are just so unsettling. It doesn't turn into a roaring lion or a giant scorpion to intimidate you.
No, because intimidation would make you run away. The ghoul wants to pull you in, so it targets the most vulnerable part of the human psyche. It targets our empathy.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because to me, this sounds exactly like a modern-day catfisher.
Oh, absolutely. The original catfisher.
The examples given in the text are just chillin'. It morphs into a beautiful woman, seemingly lost, playing on the loneliness of a traveler, or a frail, elderly man struggling in the sand, or the one that genuinely just makes my stomach drop, a crying, abandoned child.
That is the one that really gets people.
Right, and it can even perfectly mimic the voices of specific people you know, calling your name from out in the blackness.
It's weaponized empathy. The ghoul is setting a psychological snare, exploiting our highest virtues.
Our desire to help.
Exactly.
Right.
You hear a child crying in a place where no child could possibly survive alone. The cognitive dissonance is overwhelming, but your instinct to protect just overrides your logic. You step away from the firelight.
Yeah, like I said, the ultimate catfisher. Millennia before the internet even existed, this creature was fabricating entire personas just to exploit the human desire for connection and rescue.
Yeah.
It's sick. I mean, it doesn't target human physical weakness. Your best traits, your kindness, your willingness to help, are the exact levers it pulls to orchestrate your death.
And the horror is really compounded by the reveal.
The moment the illusion drops.
Right. The true terror isn't just the monster itself. It's the profound psychological shock when the trap springs. Imagine walking out into the dark, kneeling down to comfort this weeping child, and in a fraction of a second, the facade just melts away.
The physical description of its true form in the source text is pure nightmare fuel.
It is completely jarring.
It's not just ugly, it's aggressively wrong. The text describes an asymmetrical, deformed body, and I really think that asymmetry is what makes it so disturbing.
How so?
Well, the human brain is hardwired to look for bilateral symmetry in living things. When we see something lopsided and unnatural, it triggers this immediate visceral revulsion, like an alarm bell.
It throws you straight into the deepest end of the uncanny valley.
Yeah.
Add to that the jagged, elongated teeth, the skin that's described as this grayish, corpse-like pallor, and eyes that literally glow in the dark.
Not to mention the smell. The sources make a huge point of highlighting the foul, rotting stench it emits.
Right, because you are hit with this massive sensory overload. You go from the comforting illusion of a vulnerable human to this towering, asymmetrical monstrosity bathed in the stench of decay.
It's designed to induce a state of complete paralytic shock.
Absolutely. And physically, the ghoul is a powerhouse.
Yeah.
It possesses terrifying speed, unnatural endurance, and a complete mastery of optical illusions in the pitch black.
So by the time you realize you've been tricked, you are completely disoriented.
You're betrayed by your own senses, and you are facing a feral cannibal.
Which leads me to wonder about the logistics of where these encounters actually happen. Because the environment is its greatest ally.
Oh, definitely. The text specifically outlines its preferred hunting grounds.
Right. Barren deserts, obviously, but also graveyards, abandoned caves, and crumbling ruins.
Places of profound decay and emptiness. They are liminal spaces, areas that sit on the boundary between civilization and the absolute wild.
Or between life and death. The graveyard aspect makes a lot of sense if it's a scavenger. Like if it can't lure a traveler, it just digs up the dead.
Yeah, it's resourceful in the most macabre way.
But let me challenge this entire framework for a second.
Go for it.
I'm reading these accounts of ancient travelers vanishing, and part of me just sees a very practical coping mechanism.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Because the Arabian desert is one of the most hostile environments on the planet. People succumb to heat stroke, they get disoriented, flash floods, wipe out entire camps.
It's unforgiving.
Right. So isn't the ghoul basically just primitive damage control?
Right.
When an experienced scout wanders off into the dark to relieve himself and never comes back, the caravan needs a narrative. It's psychologically easier to say a shape-shifting demon tricked him than to accept the random, terrifying indifference of nature.
I agree, and from a purely anthropological standpoint, you're entirely right. It functions as a way to explain the unexplainable tragedy of the wilderness.
Right, a way to make sense of the loss.
However, I'd argue it's not just about softening the blow of a harsh environment. The myth of the ghoul is a highly specific manifestation of a very real human terror. It represents the danger of isolation.
Ah, the vulnerability of being separated from the group.
Exactly. I mean, imagine standing alone in an endless pitch-black desert. Your life back then depended entirely on your tribe, your caravan, your adherence to the collective rules.
You needed people to survive.
The desert is deadly, yes, but the desert alone is an automatic death sentence. The ghoul haunts the absolute fringes of society. Ruins where people used to live, graveyards where the dead are left behind.
Where human vulnerability is at its absolute peak.
Right. It operates in the exact spaces where the protections of human civilization just dissolve.
So the monster is a physical embodiment of the fear of being cut off. That totally tracks. If you step away from the campfire, you aren't just facing the cold, you're facing the utter lack of another human being to watch your back.
And that's why the illusion is so insidious. It uses the sound of another human to pull you into that isolation.
Wow. Now, I want to look closely at our second source, the visual chart of Arabian mythological creatures, because seeing the ghoul lined up against the competition is fascinating.
It really puts things in perspective.
The lore is absolutely packed with entities. You've got the Quadrub, the Nimnim, the Nasnas, which, by the way, is this bizarre creature that is literally half a human body hopping around.
Yeah, just one leg, one arm. It's wild.
It is a very crowded, very strange bestiary.
It illustrates how rich and complex the folklore is. But pay attention to how the ghoul is visually represented among all those others.
It really stands out, but not because it's imposing. Next to these towering fire spirits, the ghoul is drawn as this creepy, blue, crouching, humanoid figure.
Yeah, it looks distinctively stealthy.
It looks feral. It doesn't have the majestic armor or the glowing aura of the higher-tier Jinn. It looks like something that crawls on its belly to stay under your line of sight.
Which perfectly aligns with its ambush nature, but the textual notes on this chart regarding the hierarchy of power are what I find most revealing.
Okay, let's look at those.
We know the Jinn have a vast spectrum. You have the Ifrit, for example.
Right. The chart describes the Ifrit as possessing immense intelligence and cunning. They are incredibly powerful, often associated with the underworld, or fire.
And then above them you have the Merid.
The Merid. They are depicted as these colossal elemental giants of almost godlike, overwhelming power. They are the heavyweight champions of this mythology.
So looking at this hierarchy,
the ghoul is fundamentally outclassed. Based on the chart, the ghoul isn't the biggest or strongest monster in the room.
not even close.
If you somehow trapped a ghoul and a Merid in an arena, the Merid would vaporize it in a second, right?
Oh, without a doubt.
So why is it that the ghoul is the one that gets all the campfire horror stories? Why is it the bogeyman that terrified ancient travelers the most?
Because the ghoul's threat level doesn't come from its size or its raw destructive capability. It comes from its complete lawlessness.
It doesn't follow the rules.
Exactly. If you somehow find yourself face-to-face with an Ifrit or a Merid, you are in immense danger, yes. But you are dealing with a being of high intelligence that operates within a known framework.
Right. You might be able to strike a bargain with an Ifrit. You could outwit it or, offer it something it wants. There's a logic to the encounter.
There is a social contract, however twisted.
Mm-hmm.
But the ghoul, you cannot negotiate with a feral trap.
It's just hungry.
It has no interest of your treasure, it doesn't want to make a deal, and it doesn't care about the systems or the complex politics that govern the other Jinn. It is a pure, unpredictable predator of humans.
It's the difference between encountering a corrupt politician and a rabid animal. You can reason with one, but the other just wants to tear your throat out.
That absolute, chaotic unpredictability is infinitely more terrifying to an average person than a giant who lives in a palace in the clouds.
Which leads us to the ultimate question of legacy. Why did this specific myth survive for centuries?
It has incredible staying power.
It transitioned from ancient campfires to 1001 Nights, and eventually into modern horror movies, games, and fantasy novels.
Well, it endured because it served a vital, practical function for society.
How so?
The text, Shadow of the Arabian Desert, points out that these stories were primarily carried and transmitted by grandmothers. They used the tales of the ghoul to frighten and warn young children.
So what does this all mean? Like, on the surface, it just sounds like a classic scary story to keep kids from wandering off into the dark.
Don't go past the edge of the village, or the ghoul will get you.
Exactly.
It is that, but it operates on a much deeper symbolic level. It represents the fear of the unknown, certainly, but more importantly, it represents the very real danger of false appearances. It is a warning about the peril of blind trust.
I noticed that the source material is very specific about how a human actually survives an encounter with a ghoul. And I think this is the most brilliant part of the myth.
The survival aspect.
Yeah. You don't beat a ghoul by being stronger than it. You can't outmuscle it, and you can't outrun it. The stories always say you survive through intelligence and bravery.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the ghoul is really the ultimate test of critical thinking.
Right.
You survive by piercing the illusion before the trap snaps shut. You have to actively conquer your own immediate emotional reactions. When you hear the crying child in the dark, your empathy surges. The myth teaches you to hit the brakes, to assess the situation rationally.
It forces you to ask, does this make sense? Why is there a beautiful woman alone in a deadly desert? Why is this voice calling my name from a crumbling, abandoned ruin?
You have to override your humanity with cold, hard logic.
So when you really look at it, these ancient campfire stories weren't just spooky entertainment. They were highly effective public service announcements. They were survival guides, disguised as ghost stories.
They were psychological survival toolkits. The grandmothers telling these tales were essentially installing a vital defense mechanism in the minds of the next generation.
Teaching them not to be gullible.
Teaching the ultimate lesson in critical thinking. Trusting blindly in a hostile environment will get you killed. You must question what you see. You must question what you hear.
It's amazing how a story about a flesh-eating monster is actually a masterclass in situational awareness. So let's wrap up this journey. We started today looking at a creature we thought we knew, the generic, low-level zombie of pop culture fantasy.
And we uncovered a highly specialized, shape-shifting apex predator, a creature born from the unforgiving realities of the ancient Arabian desert that deliberately chose to devolve into pure malice.
A predator that doesn't target your physical weaknesses, but weaponizes your very best traits. It thrives on deception, mimicking vulnerability, and luring you into isolation before revealing a truly horrific, unnatural reality.
It is a brilliant, terrifying psychological construct, and it leaves us with a fascinating parallel to consider for everyone listening.
What's that?
We spent this time discussing the ghoul as an ancient threat, a monster born from the physical isolation of the shifting sands. And sure, the literal desert ghoul with glowing eyes and asymmetrical limbs might be pure myth.
Hopefully.
But the psychological mechanisms it represents, the tactics of the trap, I would argue they are more relevant to your life right now than they were to an ancient caravan.
Because the concept of weaponized deception hasn't gone anywhere.
Exactly. Think about the environment you navigate every single day. We live in a modern era defined by deepfakes, sophisticated online scams, and absolute digital anonymity.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The modern landscape is teeming with entities that hide their true, dangerous intentions behind beautiful avatars, fabricated personas, or perfectly targeted pleas for help or outrage.
Like the scammer pretending to be a stranded relative who needs money wired immediately.
Exactly.
Or even the algorithm itself, morphing your timeline to show you exactly what will trigger your emotions, just to keep you trapped on the platform. It's the exact same mechanism. It feeds you an illusion to seize your attention by surprise.
The environment has simply changed from the trackless dunes of the desert to the infinite scroll of the internet. But the predator's tactics remain exactly the same. They mimic what you desire, they exploit your empathy, and they lure you off the safe path. Haven't we just created an entirely new generation of ghouls?
We just built a new ecosystem for them to hunt in. The desert became global, and the shifting sands are made of data.
It's a sobering way to look at our daily interactions.
It really is. As you navigate your own digital deserts out there, keep the wisdom of those ancient grandmothers in mind. Don't trust the illusion just because it sounds familiar. Use your logic, question your surroundings, and above all else, be extremely careful who you follow into the dark.